Have you ever asked yourself, what if wealth wasn't something you earned, but something you remembered? What if becoming a millionaire was less about action and more about alignment, less about lifting a finger and more about lifting your mind? They told us that riches come through labor, hustle, and endless grind. But I discovered something radically different. Wealth is not created through effort. It is revealed through consciousness. You don't chase money. You become the version of yourself who already possesses it. That is the secret. And until you understand this truth, you will be forever bound by the illusion that money is outside of you. To become a millionaire without lifting a finger, you must realize this. All external riches begin as internal assumptions. The only thing that separates the poor from the rich is the identity they agree to wear. If you assume the identity of someone who already has wealth and you remain faithful to that version of yourself, life will reorganize to reflect it. This is not philosophy. This is law. This is the millionaire mindset, using imagination, the law of assumption for wealth, and the doorway to manifesting money effortlessly. When I was living in a tiny room, broke and surrounded by lack, I did not work harder. I simply closed my eyes and assumed I was already rich. I didn't visualize money coming. I imagined that it had already come, and it had changed me. I felt the weight of success. I wore it like a suit. I celebrated inwardly. I felt the life of someone who no longer wanted wealth because he already had it. Let me show you now how this unseen force works, and if you dare to believe it, you'll see how you can get rich spiritually, how to build passive wealth with the mind, and how to turn imagination into income. The first step is not to wish for money. Wishing keeps it away. You must assume the feeling of wealth. Let it clothe your emotions. Let it seep into your posture. Walk like it's already yours. The subconscious cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. When you dwell in the state of being rich, your subconscious accepts it as truth and then moves the outer world to reflect that inner command. Effortless abundance is not a dream. It is a vibration, a mood you enter. Begin by silencing the noise of striving. Let go of the belief that you must earn your abundance. Breathe in the frequency of enough. Feel that your world is complete. When you feel this fullness, money begins to flow to you in ways you never predicted. It is not a result, it is a reflection of your inner sufficiency. Your outer bank account mirrors your inner programming. Your subconscious money beliefs were likely formed in childhood. Beliefs like money is hard to get, rich people are greedy, or I'll never be rich. These must be rewritten. Not with logic, but with experience. Imagine scenes where you are financially free. Hear people congratulate you. Touch the car you own. Let your inner senses live the wealth now, and your inner script will begin to shift. Your senses will lie to you. They will show you bills, debt, and struggle. But if you surrender to those sights, you surrender your power. Instead, become loyal to the mental money blueprint, the image in your mind of a life of ease, wealth, and flow. You must practice fidelity to the unseen. Look not at what is, but at what should be, as though it already is. Effort is not the source of wealth. Assumption is. Action is only the bridge. The law of assumption tells us, if you feel it real, it must become real. Therefore, you don't have to know the how. You only have to remain in the assumption of wealth. If you never leave that state, the outer world bends to meet you. You'll receive ideas, calls, opportunities, but only after the assumption becomes your dwelling place. Imagination is not fantasy, it is the spiritual mechanism of creation. When you imagine being wealthy and feel its reality, you are engaging the invisible causation of wealth. Let others rely on the economy, jobs, or trends. You will rely on imagination. Every night before sleep, create a scene that implies your wish is fulfilled. Repeat it until it becomes more real than your doubt. The moment you shift inwardly, a delay may occur. The world does not always change overnight. But don't panic. Do not dig up the seed to check its roots. Trust the process. When your inner assumption of wealth becomes natural, the world has no choice but to reflect it. Remain unmoved by lack. Your confidence is the sign that manifestation is already on its way. The final key is rest. Rest is the reward of faith. When you truly believe you are wealthy, you stop trying to make it happen. You no longer need signs. You stop striving. You begin to speak differently, walk differently, and feel differently. That stillness is not laziness. It is power. From this place, money flows, opportunities arrive, and wealth becomes inevitable. Why? Because it already is. Because you already are. The first step to becoming a millionaire without lifting a finger is the assumption of the state of wealth. Not the desire for it, not the hope of it, but the full acceptance that you already are what you long to be. This is the mystery and power of consciousness. To assume a thing is to enter it. It is to let the mind and body wear a new identity as naturally as one slips into a coat. To assume the consciousness of wealth means that you cease to wait for confirmation from the world around you. You become the evidence. You become the proof. It is not necessary to earn money in the way the world describes. It is only necessary to embody the vibration of one who has already received. Your outer world is nothing more than the projection of your inner world. If you wake up every day and entertain thoughts of lack, if you believe money is far, if you believe you must work tirelessly to possess it, then you have already assumed the role of the one who is not yet wealthy. And so life complies. The world around you bends to the direction of your self-concept. It cannot do otherwise. The assumption of wealth is not a casual thought. It is not something done in passing. It is a state. It is a realm you live in. You don't visit wealth in your imagination as a tourist. You become its resident. You think from it, not toward it. When you assume the state of being wealthy, you move from hoping to knowing. You let go of all language that separates you from your desire. You stop saying, I will be rich, and you say, I am. Not as affirmation, but as awareness. You speak not to convince yourself, but because your speech is the natural overflow of the state you now occupy. The assumption must saturate your thoughts, your reactions, your expectations, and your behavior. It must be the place from which all decisions arise. This assumption is felt. It is not intellectual. It is not logical. It is emotional. And emotion is the fuel of manifestation. It is the mood of already being that moves mountains. When you feel as though your financial breakthrough has already happened, when you sit in silence and feel the calm assurance that everything is taken care of, you are already rich in the unseen. And that unseen reality is the parent of the seen. Every dollar in your bank account, every asset, every opportunity must first exist in the realm of assumption before it arrives in the realm of time. Many sabotage this process by looking to their senses for validation. They declare a new state and then immediately inspect their world to see if anything has changed. This is not faith. This is disbelief wrapped in performance. The true assumption does not require outer proof because it already possesses inner certainty. It knows that what is felt as real must become real. It is unshaken by current facts because it understands that facts are old thoughts materialized. They are not authorities. They are shadows of past assumption. To assume the consciousness of wealth means you wake up every morning and allow yourself to feel successful before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you do anything. It means you sit with your eyes closed and feel the stillness of being secure. You imagine conversations where people thank you, admire your success, ask for your insight. You feel the softness of luxury around you. You live in the end, not as fantasy, but as your dwelling place. The more real it feels, the sooner the outer must comply. This method is not about pretending. It is not about tricking yourself. It is about aligning yourself with what already exists in a higher realm of awareness. All states exist. There is a version of you right now that is already wealthy. The question is not how to become that version. The question is, are you willing to assume its posture, its tone, its inner speech, If so, then the journey is over. The rest is simply the world catching up to your new identity. There is nothing to fight for, nothing to beg for, nothing to wait for. You assume it now, you accept it now. And in doing so, you unlock the power that forms worlds. The assumption of the consciousness of wealth is not a one-time event. It is a continual choice. Each moment is an invitation to return to the state or to fall back into lack. And with every return, you deepen the grooves of that new self until it becomes natural, effortless, automatic. That is when the world changes, not before. The one who becomes rich without lifting a finger is not lazy. He is aligned. He has mastered the art of inner consent. He does not push against the current of life. He simply enters the state of already having. And by doing so, he evokes the laws of consciousness to deliver to him what he already claimed to be his. When you know that assumption is creation, you stop asking how and start saying thank you, because to assume is to receive. To align with the vibration of effortless abundance is to step out of the world of competition and labor and into the unseen atmosphere of already having. Abundance is not something you chase. It is a frequency you match. It is not built by strain. It is revealed by alignment. You do not become abundant by accumulating. You become abundant by tuning yourself to the state where lack no longer exists. This is not theory. It is the very mechanism by which the invisible becomes visible. The vibration of effortless abundance is not just a feeling, it is a realm. And anyone can enter it, not by earning it, but by agreeing with it. The world has conditioned you to associate wealth with hard work, with time, with blood and sweat, but in truth, money is not a product of effort. It is the result of resonance. You only ever receive what you are in harmony with. You cannot struggle your way into a state of ease, because struggle and ease are opposing vibrations. The moment you labor for abundance, you separate yourself from it. It becomes something out there, something to obtain. But effortless abundance is not out there. It is here. It is now. It is available the instant you dare to feel it as real. Effortless abundance begins with surrender. Not surrender to defeat, but surrender to knowing. When you stop trying to force outcomes, when you release the idea that you must move the pieces of life into place, you give permission to the higher mechanism of creation to take over. And that mechanism does not require your effort. It only requires your assumption. When you assume that life supports you, that wealth is natural, and that you are already in possession of everything you require, you vibrate with completion, and completion attracts all things that belong to it. Imagine the state of effortless wealth. See yourself waking up not with anxiety, but with peace. Feel what it's like to know that everything is taken care of. Imagine checking your accounts not with hope or fear, but with calm expectancy. You are not celebrating a number. You are celebrating the reflection of your identity. You are wealthy not because of the money, but because your vibration is no longer rooted in lack. You are no longer seeking. You are being. This inner reality must become more real to you than the external facts. For most, this is the challenge. They look at bills, at obligations, at what the world says is possible, and they collapse into reaction. But when you live from vibration, you are no longer governed by appearances. You become the cause, not the effect. You do not look to the outer for confirmation. You let your inner feeling guide you. And when your inner world stabilizes in the mood of abundance, the outer world has no choice but to comply. To align with effortless abundance is not to deny reality. It is to define it. You are not ignoring the world. You are informing it. You are not delusional, you are decisive. You have decided to live in the truth of your being, not in the illusion of separation. The world is not fixed, it is fluid. It moves by your assumption. And the assumption of abundance, when felt deeply and consistently, becomes law. You may wonder how it is possible to truly feel abundant when your senses show you lack. But the answer lies in discipline. Not discipline of action, but of attention. You must guard your attention the way a king guards his treasure. Attention is the currency of creation. What you focus on, you fuel. So when lack tries to present itself to your mind, Gently withdraw. Do not argue with it. Do not panic. Simply return to the state you prefer. Remember what it feels like to be supported. Dwell there. Visit that feeling so frequently that it becomes home. You are not building abundance. You are unveiling it. It already exists in consciousness. Every possible outcome is already complete in the unseen, but you will only experience the version of life that you align with. If you continue to act from a vibration of needing, you perpetuate the very conditions you seek to escape. But when you begin to act and think and speak from the vibration of having, you step into a new timeline. One where wealth flows, where doors open, where effort is replaced by unfolding. There is a stillness in abundance, a calm, a confidence, not arrogance, but quiet knowing. The ones who have it do not need to prove it. The ones who live it do not need to chase it. You must cultivate that silence within you. When you feel the urge to force, pause. When you feel the need to worry, rest. Remind yourself, everything I desire is already mine. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. You are not claiming what does not belong to you. You are reclaiming what always has. To align with the vibration of effortless abundance is to become the space in which wealth flows naturally, not through effort, but through expectancy. Not through pushing, but through peace. The world will call it luck. They will call it magic, but you will know the truth. You simply remembered who you are and let the outer world mirror that revelation. Your financial life is not determined by external effort, but by the internal script running quietly beneath your awareness. This script is called your subconscious money blueprint. It is a set of deep-rooted assumptions planted over time that controls how you think, feel, and react to wealth. To change your financial reality, you must rewrite this blueprint. Not through willpower, not by force, but by entering a new state of being, where your relationship with money is redefined at its core. Most people live in a loop of limitations without ever realizing that it is self-imposed. They inherit beliefs about money from their environment, from childhood conditioning, from the language of scarcity that surrounds them. Phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, or you have to work hard to get ahead, become the silent affirmations of their lives. These are not just words. They are seeds. And those seeds, once planted and watered by a repeated feeling, grow into a worldview where abundance feels foreign and struggle feels normal. You must understand that your subconscious does not argue, it accepts. It does not analyze truth, it records experience. Whatever is repeated with feeling becomes law to the subconscious. This is why visualizing wealth without emotional involvement is ineffective. The mind must not only see, it must feel. You are not trying to convince your mind that you are rich. You are trying to make it remember what it's like to be rich. The memory of a state is as powerful as the fact of it. So you do not speak to your subconscious with logic. You speak to it with imagery, emotion, repetition, and identity. Begin to plant new experiences within yourself deliberately. Close your eyes and create scenes where you are already financially free. Let the images rise naturally. Picture your hand writing a check with ease. Picture your family thanking you for the life you provided. Feel yourself walking into a home that's already paid for. Imagine receiving good news from your accountant. Don't try to manipulate the picture. Let it unfold as it would if it were true. The more natural it feels, the more powerful the impression. What matters is not how perfect your mental picture is, but how real it feels to you. Your subconscious reacts to your dominant mood, not your conscious desire. You can desire wealth and still be vibrating in fear. You can hope for abundance and still be rehearsing lack. This contradiction is what keeps people bound to their past. You must synchronize your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions into one unified state. That state is wealth. When the inner script begins to shift, you will notice a new ease in your relationship with money. Opportunities will appear, not because you chased them, but because you became a match to them. Resources will arrive, not through force, but through alignment. You are not creating wealth from nothing. You are aligning with a version of yourself that already exists. And that version carries a completely different money blueprint. This is why affirmations alone are not enough. Words without conviction are hollow. You must impress the subconscious with inner experience. Speak your affirmations while imagining the fulfillment. Say, I am financially free while feeling the relief of no longer owing anyone anything. Say, money flows to me easily while seeing yourself receiving it, touching it, enjoying it. Combine word and image, combine feeling and repetition. That is the language of the subconscious. There will be resistance in the beginning. Old beliefs may rise up and try to contradict your new story. This is not a sign of failure. It is proof that the old system is being challenged. Do not argue with those voices. Do not fight your doubts. Simply return to the new scene. Let repetition win. The subconscious does not yield to a single declaration. It yields to the weight of consistent assumption. You must become aware of your inner conversations throughout the day. Catch yourself when you speak about money. Are you reacting from the old blueprint or the new one? Begin to think and speak as the version of you who is already wealthy. You don't have to wait until the outer changes. The outer is a delayed reflection. The inner is the cause. When you rewire the subconscious blueprint, you don't need to chase money. You will attract it. You will become the embodiment of wealth, and the world will recognize it. Even before your bank account does. There is no enemy outside. The battle has always been internal, not with the world, but with the identity you assumed without knowing. Now you take it back. Now you write a new script, not based on the past, but based on the version of yourself that lives in freedom, ease, and overflow. When that becomes your dominant state, the world will follow, because it must. To live from the mental picture and not from the physical circumstances, to step into the creative center of your reality. It is the difference between being a victim of facts and becoming the cause of them. Most people allow their senses to dominate their beliefs. They look at what is and assume it must continue. They see debt and call it truth. They see lack and call it reality. But the truth is, the world you see is the echo of yesterday's thinking. It is a mirror of your past assumptions, not a prophecy of what must come. If you wish to change your life, you must stop responding to appearances and start obeying the image you have impressed upon your inner world. The outer world is always behind the inner world. What you now see with your eyes is old news, like light from a distant star. It is the afterglow of former states of mind. The great secret is to understand that the invisible mental picture is more real than the physical evidence, because it is the seed. What you see in your imagination today will shape what you touch with your hands tomorrow. But it will not happen if you continue to make today's facts more powerful than tomorrow's vision. You must choose which world you belong to, the world of the senses or the world of the spirit. If you continue to judge by appearances, you will remain bound by them. If you allow the bank statement, the current job, the so-called economy to define your expectation, you surrender your authority. But if you can look at those facts and deny their right to dictate your state, then you have found your power. You are not being asked to ignore facts out of delusion. You are being asked to see them as temporary, malleable, and already subject to change by the greater reality within you. When you hold fast to your mental picture, when you see yourself as already prosperous, already in possession of your desire, already living the end, you begin to feel the reality of the invisible. You begin to move as one who is no longer trying to create, but one who is simply witnessing the unfolding. There is no force involved in manifestation, only persistence in the assumption. It is the man who lives from the picture and not toward it that sees it break into form. Those fail to persist, they waver. They look around and see no sign of change, so they abandon the vision. But manifestation is not magic. It is law, and law requires consistency. You do not plant a seed and dig it up tomorrow to check if it's growing. You water it, you trust it, you protect it from weeds. Your mental picture must be treated the same way. You must nurture it with feeling, attention, and conviction. You must let the feeling of the fulfilled desire become your dwelling place, not your vacation spot. When you live from the mental picture, your behavior changes, not because you're forcing it, but because you are aligned with a new identity. A wealthy man walks differently, speaks differently, thinks differently, not because he's trying to act rich, but because his internal world is one of completion. If you assume that wealth is already yours, your thoughts will begin to reflect that. You'll stop worrying about how things will happen. You'll stop reacting in fear. You'll start to move in peace, and peace is the womb of creation. This is not pretending, this is awakening. Pretending tries to manipulate the outer while still believing in lack. Awakening says, I know what I am. I know what I have assumed. I know that nothing can contradict the reality I have accepted as mine. You don't need to fake anything. You simply need to feel your new world as real. That feeling is the evidence. That feeling is the connection. Once you feel it deeply and repeatedly, it will harden into fact. Your mental picture must be detailed enough to stir your emotion and natural enough to be believable to your subconscious. You don't have to see every detail, but you must capture the essence. A simple scene repeated with conviction can recreate your entire world. Perhaps it's a scene where someone congratulates you, or you hold a check in your hand, or you wake up in your dream home. Feel the furniture, hear the sounds, sense the temperature. Let the image speak to all five senses. Let your imagination be the womb of your new life. The physical world is only a reflection. You don't change the reflection by touching the mirror. You change what is being reflected. The mirror does not lie, it simply responds. If your life is not reflecting wealth, it is not because wealth is missing. It is because your inner picture has not yet changed. Change the inner image, and the mirror will adjust. To live from the mental picture is to move in faith, not in reaction. It is to wake each day and remain loyal to the unseen. It is to let the world catch up to the reality that has already been born within you. That is the essence of transformation, not by effort, not by struggle, but by persistence in the vision. Effort is not the source of wealth, assumption is. Action is not the root, but the fruit. The world has long taught that only through constant labor can one attain riches. But this is the illusion of the senses. Wealth does not begin with the movement of the body. It begins with the movement of the mind. When one enters the state of wealth through assumption, action becomes inspired and necessary, not forced and desperate. You do not act to make it real. You act because you already feel it is. To invoke the law of assumption over action is to step into the divine order of creation. It is to stop asking, what must I do, and begin asking, what must I be? For what you are being internally determines what you will see externally. If your state is one of lack, no amount of action will produce sustained abundance. You may earn money, but you will lose it. You may gain opportunities, but they will vanish. The outer will always reorganize to match your inner residence. It is not what you do that creates. It is the state you are in when you do it. Sometimes it's not fantasy. It is a disciplined dwelling. It is the persistent inner agreement with your desire, not as a future possibility, but as a present reality. To assume a thing is to accept it without question. You live as though it were true, and in doing so, you make it true. The law does not care if you call it possible or impossible. It only reflects your dominant assumption. That which you accept as real, emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally becomes your experience. There are those who work endlessly, accumulating hours, tasks, and effort, yet remain poor, not because of lack of action, but because of a deep assumption of limitation. They still believe wealth is foreign to them. They still carry the belief that they must earn worthiness. But the law responds not to sweat, but to certainty. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you place yourself in the center of the outcome. You no longer chase. It begins to chase you. You become magnetic not because of effort, but because of alignment. Action, when taken from a state of assumption, is effortless. It flows. It feels inspired. It arises naturally. You do not need to strain or struggle. You simply follow the inner promptings that match your assumed reality. A phone call may be made, an idea may come, a door may open, but you do not force these events, you allow them. You follow them with calm conviction, knowing the outcome is already settled. Action becomes the unfolding of what has already been completed and the unseen. To live by assumption is to move before there is evidence. It is to see what is not yet visible and to believe it with such depth that the world has no choice but to reflect it. This is not delusion. This is dominion. This is the way true creation operates, not by pushing life into shape, but by pulling from the invisible through inner consent. The moment you fully assume a state, the path to its manifestation is born. You may not know how it will unfold, but the way will be shown. You do not need to know the details. You only need to hold the end. The law of assumption requires fidelity. It cannot be visited occasionally. It must become your dwelling place. The state you assume must feel like home. You cannot claim wealth in the morning and worry about lack at night. You cannot assume abundance while entertaining fear. Your inner climate must be consistent. When assumption becomes natural, reality bends to your identity. You do not chase outcomes. They arrive. Drawn by the law that governs all things, you get what you are, not what you want. Many will say, I've assumed wealth, but nothing happened. But assumption is not mere wishing. It is not repeating phrases or thinking about desires. It is full acceptance. If you had already received your desire, how would you feel? How would you speak? How would you move? You must live from that posture and do so persistently, regardless of what your eyes show. Your senses are the last to catch up. They are not leaders. They are followers. Let your assumption lead and the world will mirror. To master the law of assumption is to become the author of your world. It is to write your story from the end and then walk back into the beginning with peace. You do not act out of fear, you act out of knowing. Your confidence becomes your compass. Your belief becomes your foundation. You become wealthy not when the money comes, but when the identity of wealth is so real within you that the outer must obey. This is not passive living. This is the most powerful way to live. You are not avoiding action. You are reordering the cause of action. You are stepping into the root from which all outcomes arise. And from that place you create not by doing more, but by assuming more completely. You live as the version of yourself who already has. And that version needs no permission, no validation, no proof, only persistence in the unseen. Imagination is not daydreaming. It is the divine workshop of creation. Every structure ever built, every fortune ever amassed, every empire ever established began as a thought in the invisible. But thought alone is not enough. It must be imagined with conviction. To use imagination to override limitation is to reclaim your authority as the creator of your world. You are not bound by the circumstances around you unless you believe they are fixed. The chains that hold you are not forged from iron, but from ideas. And imagination is the only power that can break them. Most people use imagination in reverse. They dwell on what they fear, what they lack, and what they do not want. They replay painful scenarios, rehearse failures, and feed their attention to undesirable outcomes. Then they are surprised when life brings those very pictures into form. But there is no surprise in that. The outer is only the reflection of the inner film being played. What you imagine consistently with feeling becomes your world. You are not a victim of what is. You are a projector of what becomes. To override limitation, you must become loyal to a different story. You must turn away from what is visible and devote yourself to what is possible. If your bank account is empty, you do not imagine it fuller in the future. You imagine it full now. You see the evidence in your mind. You feel the relief. You taste the freedom. You hear the tone of someone who no longer fears bills, no longer hesitates before purchases, no longer limits their dreams. That feeling, sustained and nurtured, begins to override the past conditioning that told you wealth was out of reach. It is not enough to wish. Wishing still acknowledges separation. It places your desire in the future and holds it just beyond your grasp. Imagination must not be a hopeful glance. It must be a full entrance. You must move into the scene and make it real. Sit in the chair you want to own. Walk through the home you want to live in. Shake hands with the person who gives you great news. Do not watch from a distance. Become the person who is living it. See it through your own eyes. Feel it in your body. Let it surround you. Imagination must be disciplined. It is not a toy, it is a tool. You cannot allow it to wander endlessly through doubt and fear. You must become its master. Direct it, instruct it, command it with clarity. Each day, close your eyes and give your attention to a scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. Do not chase details. Keep it simple but potent. Perhaps you're walking out of a bank with a sense of completion. Perhaps you're hearing someone say, "You did it." Perhaps you're feeling the fabric of luxury clothing on your skin. Whatever it is, let it be vivid and repeatable. Emotion is the glue that makes imagination stick. The subconscious does not respond to logic, it responds to feeling. If you imagine success with no emotion, the impression fades. But if you imagine success and feel gratitude, excitement, relief, or confidence, then the subconscious records it as truth. You must not only see the image, you must feel the result. When imagination is fused with deep feeling, it becomes a seed planted in fertile ground. And all seeds, when nourished, must grow. The world around you may offer resistance. It may present facts that contradict your vision. But this is not failure. It is simply the echo of old imaginings. Do not be moved. Do not attempt to fight the world. Return inward. Hold the picture. Let the world rearrange itself around your new vibration. When the outer begins to shake, it is only because the inner has shifted. Persist. Trust the unseen. The world will follow your imagination, not the other way around. You must also protect your imaginative atmosphere. Be mindful of what you consume. The news, conversations, and environments you allow into your awareness all contribute to your inner state. If they do not feed your vision, they are weeds. Remove them. Surround yourself with words, images, and stories that reinforce the life you have imagined. Let every input be intentional. You are building a new inner world, and that world requires purity of focus. There is no limitation that cannot be overridden by a persistent imaginative act. Poverty, illness, failure, loneliness, none of these are final unless you give them permanence through belief. Imagination rewrites the script. It reorders the facts. It bends the timeline. What seems impossible today can be made natural tomorrow if you dare to dwell in the new picture. You are not trying to escape reality. You are reshaping it. All the power you need is already within you, not because you earned it, but because it was given to you as your inheritance. You were made to create, not to conform. You were made to imagine, not to react. The world may have told you otherwise, but your results will not come from their opinions. They will come from your inner acceptance. And once you accept the reality of your imagined wealth, life has no option but to mirror it. You do not need to manipulate outcomes. You only need to govern your imagination. That is where all true change begins. The moment you shift inwardly, you must learn to trust the silence that follows. This is where most abandon their vision, when the world does not immediately reflect the change they've made within. But understand this, the world operates on delay. What you see around you today is not the fruit of what you assume today, but the residue of what you believed yesterday. The world is not instant in its obedience, but it is perfect in its reflection. You must not be moved by the absence of evidence. The assumption itself is the evidence. There is a quiet power that belongs to those who have truly shifted states. They do not beg, they do not plead, they do not go searching for signs. They walk in the conviction of having already received. The delay between inner change and outer manifestation is not a void. It is a gestation period. You would not plant a seed and curse the ground for not blooming by morning. You would water it. You would protect it. You would expect it. That is the posture of one who understands that faith is not reaction to results. It is the cause of results. When you disengage from the outer and trust the inner shift, you step into the role of the observer and not the reactor. You begin to move from a deeper knowing. You no longer ask if things are working. You know they are. You no longer chase validation, you rest in alignment. The world may look unchanged, but within you everything is different. And because the inner world is the blueprint, the outer must follow. It has no choice. The only choice you have is whether you remain in your new state long enough to witness the fulfillment. Doubt often appears in this in-between space. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as practicality, but it is only the echo of your former self trying to keep its seat. Do not wrestle with it. Do not argue. Simply return to your assumption. Feel the truth of it again. Bring the scene back into focus. Let it possess you until the doubt dissolves in the presence of your conviction. There is no power greater than the man who refuses to leave his state, even when all appearances scream otherwise. To trust the inner shift is to train your imagination to be more real than your eyes. Your senses are followers, not leaders. They were designed to report what is, not create what will be. When you allow them to dictate your belief, you become a slave to delay. But when you reverse the order, when you let your inner world lead, you become a master of unfolding. The man who remains faithful to his vision is the man the world must obey, not because he forced it, but because he aligned with it. There is a temptation to test the process, to ask, where is it? Why hasn't it happened? But those questions reveal that the inner shift has not yet become stable. You are still holding your desire at a distance. The one who knows no longer checks. He lives from the result. He speaks from the end. He does not need reassurance because the assumption has become identity. And identity never begs for confirmation. It simply expresses itself as fact. This is the essence of spiritual rest, not inactivity but unwavering confidence. Rest is the posture of one who knows creation is complete. It is the absence of striving. It is the awareness that nothing more needs to be done except to remain in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. When you reach this place, you will stop looking for proof, and you will start expecting its appearance as naturally as one expects the sun to rise. Even when nothing appears to be happening, everything is happening. Invisible forces are at work. People are being moved. Timelines are being rearranged. Doors are preparing to open. Circumstances are quietly shifting to reflect your new state. But if you interrupt the process with fear, doubt, or reversal of thought, you plant new seeds and delay the harvest. Remain unmoved. Return to the feeling. Re-enter the state. The more often you visit your end, the faster the beginning dissolves. Do not discuss your desire with those who cannot see it. Protect your assumption from contamination. When you speak of your vision to doubters, you weaken your own conviction. Let it grow in the dark. Let it be a sacred inner temple. In time, the fruits will speak louder than your words ever could. Your life will become your testimony, not because you chased change, but because you trusted the unseen. The bridge of incidents will unfold in ways you cannot predict. It may appear ordinary, even unrelated, but every event, every interaction, every coincidence will carry you gently toward the fulfillment. Your task is not to design the journey, but to remain loyal to the end. You do not need to control the path. You only need to walk in the feeling that the promise is already fulfilled. The how will reveal itself, but only to the one who trusts the shift. The final key is rest. Not the rest of inactivity, but the rest of certainty. It is not laziness, nor passivity, nor neglect of life. It is the highest form of inner confidence. When a man knows that what he has imagined is already his, he stops chasing, worrying, and proving. He does not look for signs. He does not press for results. He rests, not because he has given up, but because he has already received. This is the kind of rest that proceeds from faith, the kind of faith that no longer needs to ask, when will it come? Or how will it happen? True rest comes when you stop acting like someone who is waiting and start moving as someone who already owns. When you truly believe that the state you have assumed is now your reality, even if the world has yet to reflect it, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, and think differently. You don't force this behavior. It flows from your new identity. The man who knows he is wealthy does not need to remind himself every moment. He lives from that awareness. He plans from that place. He speaks with the tone of fulfillment. It has become natural to him. This kind of inner rest cannot be faked. It is not the result of positive thinking. It is not based on appearances or outer validation. It is born from a deep, unshakable knowing. It is the peace of possession. It is the stillness that comes when desire no longer pulls at you, because it has already merged with your assumption. You no longer need the world to show you the manifestation. You are already living in the vibration of the outcome. And that vibration is more powerful than any evidence the senses could ever provide. When you live in the rest of fulfillment, you let go of urgency. You are no longer checking, counting, measuring. You do not ask the seed why it hasn't grown. You do not dig up your assumptions to inspect their progress. You do not interrupt the law with doubt. You allow it to work quietly, confidently, consistently. The more relaxed your spirit becomes, the faster the world reorganizes around you. You are no longer resisting. You are no longer creating tension between you and your desire. You have collapsed the gap. And in that collapse, the miracle is born. Rest is the highest form of trust. It means you know that what you desire is already yours in the unseen. You are not trying to make it happen. You are simply letting it come forward at the appointed time. And while you wait, you do not suffer. You live in the joy of completion. You rehearse not the absence, but the presence. You celebrate quietly within yourself. You become the version of you who is no longer asking, no longer knocking, no longer yearning, only receiving. This is not a passive state. It is a fertile one. Rest is the ground in which manifestation takes root. It is the state of mind that is most magnetic to the fulfillment, because it sends a clear signal. I already have, I already am, I already know. And that signal reshapes the field around you. People, opportunities, timing, all of it begins to respond to your certainty. You don't need to explain it to convince anyone. The world begins to mirror your vibration without resistance. When you begin to rest in the knowing that you already are, you dissolve the false need to hustle for validation. You stop overthinking. You stop planning out every detail and fear. You are no longer relying on control. You are guided by inner authority. You act when prompted, but you do not push. You respond to intuition, not insecurity. You move with quiet boldness, not desperation. Your actions become precise, timely, powerful, not because of effort, but because they are birthed from clarity. Rest allows space for the law to operate without interference. Most delay their manifestation by constantly contradicting it with worry, overanalyzing, or doubting. They assume in one moment and reverse it in the next. But the one who rests has assumed so completely that there is no longer any inner argument. The decision has been made. The outcome is settled. And that spiritual finality is what brings about physical certainty. You will know you have entered this rest when your imagination becomes more satisfying than the outer world. You will not feel the need to escape into fantasy. You will feel like you are coming home to what is real. When your assumed state feels more like truth than the facts around you, you are resting in power. And the world must now deliver what you have claimed, not because you begged for it, but because you no longer question it. Rest in the knowing that you already are is the highest expression of creation. You are not reaching, you are remembering. You are not lacking, you are selecting. You are not wishing, you are identifying. And once that identification is firm, the rest becomes inevitable. You will wake up one day and realize that your world is changed, not because of struggle, but because you finally stopped struggling. You knew. And that knowing made it so. You were never meant to toil endlessly in the dust of effort, hoping for crumbs of success. The truth is, and has always been, that your world bends to the image you hold within. The riches you seek are not outside of you. They are buried within the vault of your own consciousness, waiting for you to claim them through assumption. You do not need to lift a finger to fight for what is already yours. You need only to lift your awareness, to dwell in the end, to embody the result, to live in the state of already being. Everything you have heard is not theory. It is the architecture of your future. When you assume the consciousness of wealth, when you align with the vibration of effortless abundance, when you rewire your subconscious blueprint and become faithful to your mental picture, life must obey, not because you've manipulated it, but because you surrendered to the greater law, the one that has always been operating quietly beneath the noise of action and appearance. You do not create wealth by trying harder. You create it by assuming deeper, by stepping into the end and refusing to leave no matter what facts surround you. When you remain loyal to that unseen reality, the world reshapes. Doors open, people appear, circumstances align, not through effort, but through spiritual gravity. You become magnetic, not by pushing, but by being. Use imagination not as a refuge from the world, but as the forge of your new one. Let it override every limitation, overwrite every false identity, and wash away every inherited belief about lack. And when the world tells you nothing is changing, trust the shift. Disengage from appearances and rest, not because you are idle, but because you already possess. The stillness of inner knowing is the greatest action you will ever take. You are not waiting for wealth. You are remembering that you are it. You are not becoming, you are unveiling. And when you walk in the silence of certainty, when your inner atmosphere no longer contradicts your desire, manifestation is not a question, it is a guarantee. The work is not out there, the wealth is not out there. It begins and ends with one quiet, revolutionary act, assuming it is already so. That is the method. That is the mystery. That is the way you become a millionaire without lifting a finger.